This is Talkback 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. KGVO, Missoula's news and weather station.
Hey, welcome. The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
Welcome, everybody. It is the Tuesday edition of Talkback, and Talkback this morning is brought to you by Phillips Janitorial, with residential and commercial cleaning, and no job is too big or small for Phillips Janitorial. Their number, 406-260-6617. Also brought to you by Y West Storage. They're, of course, out at the Y on Two Smokes Way. If you need a place to store all your stuff, they've got it for you. Call 406-510-0590. They are making room for you. And also brought to you by 123 Seamless Gutters, family owned and operated, and they can handle everything that has to do with gutters so you don't have to. As fall turns to winter, call 406-240-2669, protecting the foundation of your future. And also brought to you by Harrington Surgical Supply, where their mission remains the same, to restore confidence and comfort into your daily life. So welcome, everybody. Good to have you along here on Talkback this morning. And Nick Christensen right over there. Good morning, Mr. Nick.
Good morning.
And in the studio this morning is gubernatorial candidate Ryan Busse. Good to talk with you, sir. How are you?
It is good to be back in Missoula. Love it that we got a little rain. That was needed, and super good to be here in the studio with us.
It was perfect timing for me to go all the way out to the dump and dump my leaves in the mud. It was great.
That's the way she works, man.
All right. And we also have Raph Graybill joining us on the phone right now, all the way from Miles City. Raph, good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm great. I'm sad I can't be with you guys, but I got to say the sunrise out here in eastern Montana is beautiful right now.
Good deal. All right. Well, it's good to have you. So, gentlemen, we are here to talk about the race for governor. It's going great guns right now. We have exactly 2 weeks before Election Day. So, Mr. Busse, in your view, how's it going?
We feel really good. We just did our 162nd event last night, and like all of our events, we had a bunch of Republicans there show up and say things like, "Man, never voted for a Democrat before, but I love you guys. I can't stand where the state's going. I don't like what Greg Gianforte has done to my taxes," things like that. And I don't want to scare anybody if you come to one of our events, but the fastest way to get a hug from Ryan Busse is to be a Republican and show up and say that to me, man. I'm going to give you a big old hug. So I gave a few out last night.
All right. So what are people most upset about? I mean, especially when Republicans come to one of your events. I'm sure Democrats go to Gianforte's events every now and then too. So yeah,
property taxes are really indicative of what have people upset. Governor Gianforte was handed a $2.6 billion surplus, big bunch of money. He gave big tax breaks away to a lot of wealthy folks like himself, and then almost every homeowner in this state got walloped with a big tax increase. And if you're a renter, your rent went up because of that property tax increase. So that leads with us. We hear that. The thing about those property tax bills, they're what a lot of entities are not these days. They're bipartisan. In other words, they go in a blue mailbox and they go in a red mailbox. So Republicans that show up are upset about that. They're also upset about the way Fish, Wildlife, and Parks is being dismantled and the way our elk and deer herds are being commercialized. I think there's an overt attempt to sell our common resource, our wildlife resource that we all love so much, opening weekend, this coming weekend. For the first time ever, rich out-of-state landowners have special elk tags at the expense of all of us. That's never happened before in this state, and they're not happy about that either.
All right, so to be honest with you, I'm not being a hunter. I'm not familiar with that rubric. What's going on?
Yeah, that's House Bill 635, and there is a principle in the state of Montana that we have always managed wildlife for everybody. So if you're a carpenter or a nurse or a teacher or a mechanic, or you just like the average Joe has exactly the same opportunity as bajillionaire ranch owners. That's the way it's always been, not now. Governor Gianforte passed through a bill that says these out-of-state landowners get special elk tags. That's the first time it's ever happened. The first time. That's the equal opportunity has always stated that Montana residents all have equal opportunity to this, so we no longer do have equal opportunity. And for those people who hunt mule deer, like up in Region 6, it's where a lot of folks hunt, Havre and on east. Last year, there were more non-residents that harvested mule deer there than residents. That's because this Fish, Wildlife, and Parks Commission and FWP is really prioritizing out-of-state hunters over residents. And for those of you who feel crowded out of your elk camps or deer camps, I get it. It's wrong, and I think it's time we manage Montana wildlife for Montanans.
Okay, we're up against our first break. By the way, the phone lines are open. If you have a question or a comment for Ryan Busse and Raph Graybill, they're both here, one in person, one on the phone. Phone lines are open. The number is 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309. You can also use the KGVO app and message that feeling, that thought. Nick will be happy to pick it up and pass it along to our guests. So he'll be here for a whole hour. So if you have a question, give us a call. We'd love to hear from you as the election is 2 weeks away. So we'll be right back after this timeout.
Why wait for...
Dennis Bragg with your updated weather. It's back to sunshine Tuesday, but continued close to normal temperatures. Highs reaching the mid to upper 50s. Clear skies Tuesday evening will probably bring a hard freeze to the valleys Wednesday morning in western Montana, with lows dropping into the low to mid 20s and even the upper teens in some of the outlying areas. Fog may also be a problem for some Wednesday morning, followed by afternoon sun. Then increasing clouds in the evening with a 40% chance of rain. That cold front passes quick, though, and it's back to sun Thursday and Friday.
Okay, we are back on Talkback, 721-1290. That's the number. I'm Peter Christian, Nick Christensen, producing Talkback, and joining us here in the studio this morning is Democratic candidate for Governor Ryan Busse, and Raph Graybill is also joining us on the phone right now. His Lieutenant Governor, a running mate, and Catherine is on the line. Catherine, good morning. What's your question for Ryan and Raph? Go ahead, please. We have her?
Press the number 2 button on yours.
I did. Got nothing. Well, Catherine, try calling us again.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. They put a new phone in yesterday because we've been having those phone issues, so we'll
interesting.
We had Raph, so well, the phones are working, so maybe there's Catherine.
We'll try it again.
Catherine, can you hear us? You may have to take it next time it calls. We'll see.
All right.
We'll see.
One more time, Catherine. Give it a shot.
So press number 2.
Okay, here we go. All right, there we go. We got it. All right, Catherine, we've got this figured out now. Our humble
Catherine,
apologies.
by any chance, are you an IT specialist?
No, I wish.
All right. So what's your question, ma'am? Go ahead.
Yeah, well, North Dakota has on its ballot this time a proposal to abolish property taxes, and other states are also considering that. Nebraska, as an example. What do you think of it, and do you think that's something Montana would go for?
I don't think we're in a position where we can or should abolish property taxes. I will say this: Raph and I believe deeply that we cannot continue to saddle homeowners with more and more higher percentage of property taxes. Our tax proposal is very, very simple. It rolls back property tax rates to 2022 level. So for all segments of the population, homeowners, small businesses, and agricultural owners, there's no reason that we can't do that. The previous 4 governors did that when faced with an increase in property tax values. We believe we should do that. We had a $2.6 billion surplus, still raised taxes on people. Governor Gianforte put that in his budget, and he asked his supermajority to pass it, and they did. So it was an intentional act. We didn't need to do it. We're going to have another budget surplus, and so Raph and I believe very simply we got to roll property taxes back. We can't have them be unfair in the way that homeowners are saddling too much of our tax burden.
But why do you think that we could not abolish that? I mean, what would stand in the way of actually abolishing property taxes and going to some other way of raising money?
Well, that's a pretty big.
It's a big lift.
Pretty big, tall task. There's a lot of things in our society that rely upon taxation of some sort. Our schools and so many other.
Well, I have it right here. It says Montana's property tax system provides important funding for education through local schools, infrastructure, roads, bridges, other local services like fire protection as well. So,
Well, Catherine, I will say this. Our state has changed from what it was 50 years ago, where so much of our tax burden and tax base was relying on big industrial companies. It's changed now. We're the top The top industry in the state is now financial services, real estate, something like that. Agriculture is now number 10, 11, or 12, depending on where you are, what graph you're looking at. So our state has changed a lot, and I think we do have to look at changing the way our taxation is laid upon our citizens, but completely abolishing property taxes I don't think is a doable solution.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call, Catherine. All right. So as you're out and about, obviously you've been on the road for a long time.
We have, over a year.
So tell us, if you will, some of the more unusual the questions that you had, people coming up to you and say, and you kind of go, what?
well, I just got one last week. I was in Missoula here. We debated Governor Gianforte, and for those of you who haven't seen the debate, you should watch it. It's on our website, busseformontana.com. You can click on it and watch the whole thing. There are YouTube links there. But one of the questions was, what do you think of the TV show Yellowstone, and have you watched it? That was in the debate. And I got to be honest with you, I've only watched a couple episodes of Yellowstone. I just wasn't a huge fan of it. I know a lot of people have, and it was asked in relationship to how it's increased our population or changed our population. But I didn't see that one coming. I didn't see that. How about you, Raph? What have you heard that you remember?
Well, sometimes we talk about at these events how we unfortunately have had to sue Gianforte so many times for passing unconstitutional laws, and that occasionally inspires people at events to come up and ask me about their personal legal problems. And I always have to kind of give a little disclaimer, we can do this, but maybe not right here, and we'd have to go through a whole process. And, I actually don't know a lot about wills and estates or about real estate law. I've got a very niche practice in defending the Constitution. But we do get a lot of those. Well, can you tell me, my brother's got this particular issue? And I'm like, oh, gosh. You've sold me as an expert here, and oh man, I don't know if I can answer this one.
This is the downside of having one of the state's best attorneys on your ticket. We often get asked to provide legal services, but no, we can't do that.
All right. So as we move forward, we have 2 weeks left. So what is your emphasis? What are you working on right now?
Well, we're just about ready to embark upon. We're doing our town halls all across the state. We've done them in Great Falls and Billings and Bozeman and Missoula, Kalispell. We're getting ready to embark upon a Highline tour all the way over to Sydney. We're going to do several town halls, and that's important for us. Governor Gianforte has never done a publicly advised meeting where he tells people ahead of time that he's going to be there and then takes questions. In the 4 years he's been governor, he's not done that. We think it's really important to be transparent with folks and to let them ask open questions and to advise where we're going to be. They show up, they can ask us any question. We answer the ones we know, and we tell folks when we don't know, and we'd like to find out more information. But we have in our Constitution the right to know. It's written into our 1972 Montana Constitution. We take that very seriously. That's not just the right to find out what the government did. That is Montanans have the right to know what the government is doing at the time it is doing it. And so we take that very seriously. That's why we're having those town halls. We'll be doing that for the next week or so.
Okay, we're going to come right back. We are taking a commercial break. We have Denise and Buck both waiting to visit with you, gentlemen. When we return, again, our guests here in the studio, Ryan Busse, Democratic candidate for governor. On the phone, Raph Graybill, his lieutenant governor running mate. So we'll be right back after this. Talk back, everybody. All right, we are back here in the studio talking with Ryan Busse, Democratic candidate for governor. On the phone, Raph Graybill, he's in Miles City, lieutenant governor candidate. And we have Denise on the line. Denise, good morning. What's your question for our guests?
Good morning. I am wondering if there's any conversation we could have about the roundabout in the Bitterroot Valley on Highway 93 at Bell Crossing, and if you would be able to do something to stop the forward motion of the roundabout and bring some sense to that situation. And I'll hang up and listen to your comment. Thank you so much. Denise,
can I ask you a question real quick? Is there anybody out there in the Bitterroot that's in favor of that roundabout? Because I've only heard negative reactions.
No one that I speak to anywhere is interested in having that roundabout financially or physically.
All right. Well, I just thought I'd ask, but gentlemen, your thoughts. I know you drive up that way. You've been all over the state, so if you can picture in your mind a roundabout instead of that big 4-way stop up there.
I got to tell you, and I'm not trying to be smart aleck here. We have not taken a position on roundabouts. I'm not dove into traffic policy and roundabouts, but I'm happy to hear about it, Denise. I didn't know there was a controversial situation with it down there. I don't know if Raph may have something clever to say about roundabouts, but don't have a position on it yet. But I appreciate your concern about it.
Aside from the fact it was a great song by Yes. But anyway, Raph, any comments?
Canadian rock bands and roundabouts, okay, I guess. Everything else, we'll have to think about it.
Raph, any comments on that?
Well, I sometimes you drive to see Ryan, and if you're coming from the south up in Kalispell, they got those 3 different roundabouts there, and you really get in touch with your car's suspension if you're trying to get anywhere in a hurry because you're careening around on one side. So. I'm sure traffic engineers have a reason to like it, or maybe it's lower maintenance. I think I personally prefer stop signs and stop lights. That would be my personal preference. I think I have an open mind if a traffic engineer wanted to persuade me otherwise. I live in Helena. There is this weird, 6-way intersection that the local conspiracy theory is the government won't fix the stoplights because they want to put a roundabout there. So there appears to be a trend in Montana about roundabouts. And again, I don't have strong policy views on it, but I'm sort of personally interested to get to the bottom of why we are converting all these intersections.
Well, it's also going to create a brand new sign, the sign of the cursing motorist.
I've already seen those.
Yeah. All right, let's get Buck on the line. Oh, I believe Buck is on the line. Buck, good morning, sir. Well, I got to push line 3. All right. Okay, Buck, good morning. You're on Talkback with Ryan Busse and Raph Graybill. Go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Hey, Buck. How you doing?
I'm here.
Great. What you got this morning?
Well, I'm on the wrong. They're talking about me on KGVO, and somehow the phone system dumps me to the other station.
No, we're on KGVO. You're on with us, man.
Go ahead. You're on KGVO right now.
Okay, sorry, it really confused me. Yeah, Ryan, I don't remember for sure, but you some time ago.
You might want to turn your radio down. I think what you're getting is a delay.
I realize that, but there was like I said, the hold was on another station, a little bit confusing. That might be why you're having problems also.
Okay.
Some time ago, and my memory's not that good, I would guess it wouldn't have been a political ad. I think you might have appeared on Talkback once before.
I've been on here a couple times.
Right, and you said you didn't really approve of open carry. Would you clarify that?
Yeah, open carry for firearms. I think that open carry in populated areas is not the best thing in the world. I don't think you need to walk down the cheese aisle wondering about whether blue cheese is going to jump out and grab you. I'm not, I grew up on a farm and ranch, and there were a lot of times when I carried either a revolver or a, rifle or shotgun or whatever. So technically that's open carry. But I think in really populated areas, doing it in a way that intimidates folks is wrong. You remember,
my opinion is too bad. The Second Amendment is not to kill a gopher. Mm-hmm. And so, with all due respect, I disagree with you there.
Yeah,
sir.
I've never stated that there was any Second Amendment right on gopher hunting, Buck. I appreciate that. I think that there's no right to intimidate folks either. And people may remember not very long ago we had a guy marching up and down the streets in Billings with a loaded AR right across from a school, and I don't think that's right. I don't think we should. I think as gun owners we should stand up and say, hey, that endangers all of our rights, and we don't need kids and parents dropping kids off at school to be scared. So I'm about as pro-gun as it gets, but I'm also very pro-responsibility, and I think that's what all gun owners should be.
Well, would you sign that into law? You can't carry a sidearm in most places openly?
No, I don't think. In most places in Montana are open and rural, so I think that you can do that. I just think that we should, as gun owners, we should be responsible and make sure that if that happens, again, like that guy in Billings, I think we should call that out. I think gun owners should say, hey, man, that's not right. Put that away. Don't scare people.
May I ask a question now? What is the difference between, is it okay to walk into a grocery store and you've got your jacket on and you've got your weapon, your sidearm
that's
with
concealed
you?
carry. Sure.
Concealed carry. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think that's fine. And I think, concealed carry, you're not scaring folks, kids in the cheese aisle or in the cereal aisle don't see a big gun, and I think concealed carry is fine. Responsible people have been doing that for a long time, and you have the right to defend yourself. I believe in that.
Well, we might disagree on the technicalities of that, but thank you for being honest.
Yeah, all right. Thanks, Buck.
Buck, thanks for the call. With that, we're up against another break. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. And I believe Jeff is going to be coming up here with a question in just a moment. Our guest here in the studio, Ryan Busse, Democratic candidate for governor, and Raph Graybill, his lieutenant gubernatorial candidate, is on the phone with us from Miles City. So give us a call. They'll be here with us until 9 o'clock this morning, and then it's Missoula Econ 101. So we're gonna continue this conversation right after this.
Hard water. Dennis Bragg with your updated weather. It's back to sunshine Tuesday, but continued close to normal temperatures. Highs reaching the mid to upper 50s. Clear skies Tuesday evening will probably bring a hard freeze to the valleys Wednesday morning in western Montana, with lows dropping into the low to mid 20s and even the upper teens in some of the outlying areas. Fog may also be a problem for some Wednesday morning, followed by afternoon sun. Then increasing clouds in the evening with a 40% chance of rain. That cold front passes quick though, and it's back to sun Thursday and Friday.
Okay, we're back. This is Talk Back. We're having a great conversation with gubernatorial candidate Ryan Busse, and of course Raph Graybill also joining us on the phone. And let's get Jeff on the line. I believe Jeff. There we go. Jeff, good morning. You're on with our guest.
Morning, Jeff.
What's on your mind?
Hey, good morning. Sorry, I had to tune in late. You may have covered this already, but I want to talk about property taxes and the delusion, Ryan, that you guys seem to be under, that the evil governor, Greg Gianforte, and his minions of legislators somehow have raised property taxes, and they would be down if only they had addressed property tax rates, because that's a complete fiction. There's cities don't set their budgets that way. The city of Missoula created a budget.
So little history lesson here.
Can I finish, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to make my point. The city of Missoula sets a budget, and then in order to fund that budget, they have two things they consider: the tax rate and the mill rate. They have to combine those two to get to their budget numbers. The mill rate or the tax rate doesn't drive the budget. The budget drives the mill rate and the tax rate. So you have it backwards, and there's not much. Even if the governor had set the tax rate lower, all they would have done was assigned a higher mill rate in order to get to the budget they needed.
Actually, Jeff, okay.
Fiction.
So that's actually not true. Let me give you a quick dissertation on the folks who disagree with you. The previous four governors, so 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats, they disagree. Why? Because they were faced with exactly the same situation that Governor Gianforte had. Property values had risen, and those governors knew if they didn't roll back the property tax rate, people would get walloped with a great big property tax increase. So those 4 governors did it. And then we have county commissioners across the state, folks who have been elected largely by Republican majorities in most counties. They vehemently disagree with you. And then, of course, we have mayors, Jeff, who disagree with you as well. Those mayors, including the mayor of Kalispell, who's about as staunch a Republican as it gets, his quote was, "The governor is free to learn about our budgeting process. Until such time as he does that, he better," and I quote, "shut the hell up." So this is just a short list of the folks who disagree with you. And here's how property taxes actually work. They are calculated by the value of your home, which can go up or down. Obviously, it's been going up, times the mills. You're right. Those are things that the city and local government has set, times the state property tax multiplier rate. And it is that multiplier rate that the governor and the legislature control, and that Governor Gianforte decided to increase or leave the same, put in his budget. He asked his supermajority to pass it. They did, and your taxes went up. It's about that simple.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
We have county commissioners across the state, folks who have been elected largely by Republican majorities.
Jeff, are you there?
Disagree with you. And then he's got the delay on.
Okay, yeah. Jeff, are you there, sir? Hello, Jeff. Okay. Let's get Lynn on the line then. All right, so we're going to go. Hey, Lynn, good morning. You are on Talkback with Ryan Busse. Hi, go ahead, please.
Good morning.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thanks for having me. I wanted to bring up real quick the BEAD broadband access funds that are getting ready to be doled out here. Starting in October, they're doing the application and everything. And naturally, Gianforte, like a lot of other governors and states and everything, legislation, they decided to only allocate that funds to the big existing telecommunications providers that do fiber and everything. And I was curious if you guys had a position on that as far as, retaking a look at the requirements for that and potentially allowing wireless providers to get a slice of that pie, as it were. As Montana is a pretty big state, and there's a lot of area to cover, and wireless providers can do it faster and a lot of times cheaper, cover a lot more people. So I know the NTIA is looking into rewriting the rules on that, so I wanted to see what your position was on that. Thank you.
Hey, thanks for the call.
You bet. We are troubled by the degree to which those contracts have been coalesced and sort of designed for the largest companies in the state and in the nation. Completely hear you. So the simple answer to your question is yes. We would like to see whatever is most efficient and with some nod given to Montana companies that can get the job done. This governor has a history of pulling funding from Montana companies and institutions and service providers with a nod towards big publicly traded companies who apparently he's concerned about whether they have good quarterly reports in their in their 10Qs. We don't care so much about the quarterly reports of big national companies. We do care a lot about whether the folks in Montana have broadband. And so I think we would like to see Montana companies get at least a fair shake, if not more than a fair shake. It is Montana after all. And we'd like to see prioritization of the services provided to the folks that program is designed for.
Raph, any comments on that?
Totally agree. And, I think there's been this trend of, selling off public services to these out-of-state corporations. It also reminds me, we got this email leaked to our campaign about 2 weeks ago. Email got sent around by the head of the Department of Public Health and Human Services, the biggest agency in the state. And the director emails out to the whole departments, and he says, hey, I need you, one, to tell us things we can stop doing. Okay, so we're paying more taxes and a surplus, and they're saying, what can we stop doing? And then there's some other question. And then the third question in this email was, how can we use AI to improve government? And so Ryan and I kind of had some fun on Gianforte trying to use more AI. And I went on to AI and I asked it, what should the Montana Department of Energy, which is fake, do in 2025? And AI spat out this whole list of stuff that this fake agency should do in 2025. And we're like, okay, I don't know if we're going to use AI that way. But then I asked AI, how can we improve healthcare access in Montana? And you know what it said? It said reauthorize the Medicaid expansion program. So they got it right the second time. But it's part of this larger trend of treat government just as sort of any other shareholder corporation, sell things off, make people rich out of state, and get rid of the Montana-based businesses. And that is just not an approach that has ever worked well for us.
Well, and that goes along with we just had 13 job services organizations in various towns across the state shut down. Why? Governor Gianforte awarded the contract to an out-of-state Virginia-based call center company named Maximus that's publicly traded, and the governor owns stock in. And I just want to be on record, we do not give a hoot about the stock price of Maximus. We care about whether we provide good job services to the people in Montana. Would like to do it with Montana Jobs, that's the way it's been forever. not in favor of closing down Montana operations and costing Montana jobs so a publicly traded corporation in Virginia can have a better stock ticker symbol.
Okay, with that, we're up against another break. We're going to come right back. We have other folks waiting on the line. We're having some phone problems, and we're trying to work through those, but we appreciate your patience as well as the patience of our guests, Ryan Busse and Raph Graybill. We're going to continue on with more of Talkback in just a minute. And please remember that Ryan and Raph will be with us for another about 18 minutes or so. So if you do have a question or comment, it's only 2 weeks before the election, so get your questions out here. We'll be right back after this.
Need to replace your Social Security card? In most states, you can request one online with a My Social Security account. A My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal earnings history and benefit status. You can also get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Okay, we are back. This is Talkback. Hi, Peter Christian, Nick Christensen, producing Talkback, taking your phone calls. Ryan Busse joining us here in the studio. Democratic candidate for governor, and Raph Graybill is on the phone with us from Miles City. Let's try to should we get Jeff back on?
Yeah, Jeff is back. He got cut off there.
All right, Jeff, I apologize for cutting you off, sir. We've had technical difficulties. Please continue your conversation.
Yeah, by the way, the other radio station is carrying a national show, I think called Brooks and Jeffrey or something.
Okay.
So you know which station you're cross-referenced with.
Thank you.
So back to the discussion. So you're trying to tell me that the city of Missoula, the county of Missoula, Lake County, all the counties in Montana would not have assessed the money necessary to meet their budgets if the state tax rate was just lower?
That's correct. Their budget did not go up, Jeff. The property taxes went up 21% because of home values and the fact that that Governor Gianforte did not roll back the property tax rate. So nobody was running around saying, hey, we need 21% more money. That's not what was going on. The home values went up.
That's not what happens in a budget. The city of Missoula set a budget. The county of Missoula set a budget. They said, this is what we need. And they set the millage to meet
Hey, Jeff, you're wrong on this. What happened is home values have gone up.
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, Raph.
Hey, Jeff, so one other piece I think that's helpful to this discussion. So there's actually a state statute in Montana that prevents local governments from growing their year-over-year budget by a certain percentage. It's actually capped by statute. So you are right, Jeff, in the first instance that, yeah, they set a budget, but they can't grow their budgets at the rate that property taxes have grown. The reason property taxes have gone up 21% on average, we've seen homes go up as high as 111% year-over-year. That is not due to local government budgeting processes because they're capped by statute. The reason those go up so high is that DOR appraiser shows up at your house, says, hey, house values have gone up in Montana. He's got his clipboard. And then the expectation is that then the state will lower its multiplier rate so your taxes do not go up. And that's what Ryan's been talking about. That's what has historically happened because the state government doesn't need more money. There's no reason that if your value goes up, you should have to pay more in taxes. So there's this almost automatic process in the past where we lower the rate if values go up, and all things held equal, the local government stays the same. What changed under Gianforte, and that was different under Democrats and Republicans, is he did not correspondingly lower the rate when the values went up. So these local governments you're talking about, yeah, they set a budget, but they can't grow their budgets year over year by this massive increase we all saw. That is directly a result of the state failing to change the multiplier rate in Title 15. Gianforte asked for it. It got him $259 million additional dollars in the state general fund, and that money got spent on tax cuts to groups like Northwestern Energy. They got a $36 million tax cut from the state they didn't even ask for. So you are right. The local government have a role, but they can't raise.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
You're trying to tell me that the state gets money from my property taxes, other than education. The only money the state gets from my property tax is education money. All the rest of it goes to city and county.
It goes in the general fund.
That's not true, Jeff. This increase went into the general fund.
How?
And Jeff, I'll tell you this, Jeff. If the city of Missoula wanted to raise your taxes, wanted to grow its budget 21%, that's where that state law would kick in and say, no, Missoula, you cannot grow by 21% year over year. This increase, $259 million across the state, largely went into the state general fund, and that's where it was redistributed away from folks like you and me.
Gentlemen, Jeff, we have like four more callers on the line, and thank you for your passion, and thanks for the call.
One more. I'm looking at my property tax statement, and there is nothing on there. There's no line item for state. There's education for the state, but there's no other item that goes to the state. It's all county and city. So I'm not buying it.
All right. Thank you for the call. Let's get Ed on the line. Okay, we're going to go like that, and we're going to go.
Ed actually hung up. So
okay.
It looks like Jim on 3.
Okay. All right. All right, Jim, good morning. Good morning, Jim. You're on Talkback. Hi. Thank you so much for holding. You are on Talkback with Ryan Busse and Raph Graybill. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Who knows how many acres are landlocked by private ranches and not allowed access?
939,000.
Why is that allowed?
It should not be allowed. Thanks for calling in. Yeah, for those who may not know what Jim's speaking of here, there is a situation we have across the West, and it's particularly bad in Montana. The folks listening to this, if you're a Montana citizen, I like to call you a fellow public landowner. I am one with you. So there are 939,000 acres of landlocked public land in this state due to the fact that there is somewhere a corner of public land that touches another corner of public land that is currently deemed illegal to cross from that, even though we have phones that can get us right down to the inch, right, of that corner, cross one corner to the other. So you step from one corner onto the other corner of the public land and you don't trespass. The governor has deemed that illegal, even though it's clearly legal. You're clearly not trespassing. And there's a federal case in Wyoming that has deemed it legal. The governor still, through his Fish, Wildlife, and Parks director, Dustin Temple, has said that they're still going to prosecute that, and that's still illegal in Montana. So the governor is actively prohibiting you from accessing 939,000 acres of your public land. I think that's wrong. We would on day one deem that legal, and happily so.
So when the general rifle season opens, right, here pretty quick.
Yep.
So what potentially could happen out there?
If you right now, if the county prosecutors follow the governor and the Fish, Wildlife, and Park director's directive, you could be prosecuted for trespass simply from stepping on from one corner of your public ground that every single citizen owns to another corner and never touching a blade of grass on the private ground. The governor has deemed that illegal, so you could be prosecuted for trespass for that.
So who has told you that? I mean, how do you know that's a fact?
That's a stated. So Dustin Temple is the director of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and you can look it up. They put out a statement last year. He's not an attorney, but apparently he does have a legal opinion on this. And he stated in Montana that corner crossing is still deemed illegal. That's the position of the governor of the state of Montana.
Okay, with that, we're going to take a break. Come right back. We have Ed and Alex both waiting to visit with you. Again, Ryan Busse here in the studio with us, Raph Graybill on the phone. Only about 8 more minutes if you have a question or comment. We still have Ed and Alex to get their questions in. We'll be right back in just a moment. You know, of all the business on Talkback, just a few precious minutes left with Ryan Busse and Raph Graybill. I believe Ed is on the line. Whoops, I pushed the button. There we go. Ed, are you there, sir?
Do it again. Press 2 again. Sorry.
Press 2 again.
There you go.
Okay. Hey, Ed, good morning. Hey, the fun continues, sir. What's on your mind? Go ahead.
Well, I was caught in that phone mess, and I don't know if this has been asked, but I'll ask it anyway. How do you feel about Constitutional Initiative 126 and 127? In other words, how are you going to vote on that? Do you think the Constitution really needs this or not?
So, Ed, I appreciate you calling, and those initiatives are a little bit confusing, but luckily for you, I have the state's preeminent constitutional attorney on the phone and on my ticket with me, so I'm going to let Raph take this one, and I think he and I are about in the same spot on this.
Raph, go ahead.
Hey, yeah, this is Raph. So, I think I share a lot of values of the folks who are behind these initiatives, who are saying basically, wouldn't it be a good thing if the political system in Montana had fewer extremists running for office. And I think the idea is, under these initiatives, they hope that you'll shave off some of the extremes on the left and on the right. And I think that would be a good thing. I do not know how it will work out in practice. I do not know if that will, in fact, be the case. I've only really seen advertising for 126. That's the one that says there's a top 4 system. So, like, the top, you don't vote on a particular primary. It's just the top 4 vote getters move forward. 127 then says, okay, if you've got this top 4, the person with the most has to get above 50%, and if you get lower than 50, the legislature will choose who the winner is or what the mechanism is for picking a winner. I do not like that idea. God bless our legislators. I don't trust them to run a lemonade stand, and so I don't want them deciding who gets to win elections in this state. I think that's also maybe why you haven't seen as much advertising on 127, because I think people share that view that the last thing we want to do is have our lovely legislators choose the winners of things like senator and governor. So I'm a no on that one. But I do understand, we want less extremism in our politics. And, like, part of the reason we love coming on this show is we get to talk to people of all different political persuasions. And, turns out we happen to share a lot of values in Montana. And there's kind of this campaign industry where people make money dividing us and focusing on these sort of made-up issues that get everyone all riled up. And that just historically in America has not produced better government or better outcomes or better civic life. And I wish we had kind of more of what we're doing here today, of folks with different backgrounds calling in and talking about stuff.
Do you encourage people to vote or not vote for 126?
I am focused on my race, and I'd say vote your conscience on that one.
Gotcha. All right. Let's get Alex on the line. There we go. Hey, Alex, good morning. You're our last caller. Quickly, what's your question for Ryan?
Ryan Busse made lots of money selling firearms, and then he became so rabidly anti-gun and anti-Second Amendment that he got an F rating from the NRA, which is their very worst rating for personal firearms freedoms. I'd like him to explain what his positions have been and why the NRA chose to give him an F rating.
All right.
Thanks for calling in, Alex. I worked in the gun industry for 25 years. I'm very proud of that. I helped build one of the nation's largest gun companies. I'm responsible for selling 3 million guns. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in the right to self-defense, and I also believe in responsibility. The sad thing is that the NRA, like a lot of other groups, has become one of these nationalized orgs that if you run from one party, you just if you have a D behind your name, I guess they just automatically kind of give you an F. There's never been a governor of this state or any state, to be honest with you, who's sold more guns and worked in the firearms industry at all, much less 25 years and won a bunch of awards. Again, I'm proud of all that. I'm not proposing any new gun laws. I'm not in favor of any kind of national ban. I've been very ardent about that. I am in favor of being responsible and calling out folks who do things that are irresponsible, because I think it's our responsibility as gun owners to do that. And so I will continue to do that and be a good example, and I'll be hunting and shooting every chance I get with my boys or by myself or self-defense, whatever it is. We have exactly about a minute and a half left. I want to get up on the soapbox and tell us why we should vote for Ryan Busse. You bet. Thanks for having me here. I want folks to know that this is a place that is so amazing. It changes people. There have been, as I mentioned at the beginning, Republicans coming to every one of our events. We just did an event in Cardwell, Montana, and for those of you who don't know, the population of Cardwell is 52. We had about 83 folks there, a lot of hats and a lot of boots that I could tell had been on horses that day. And there were guys there who came up to me and said, I've never even been at a Democratic event, but I'm here because I can't take what Governor Gianforte is doing to this state. They are worried about their public schools, and they should be, especially in small towns. But in larger cities, too, Missoula, we just laid off 72 teachers. It's a dire situation. They're worried about their public lands. They're worried about the way their wildlife are being managed, and they're worried about the way this place is being turned into a state that honestly, it provides a path for the rich and advantaged and a lesser path for everybody else. That's never been the state that we've lived in. We don't care about each other's rank. We don't check each other's trust fund or monetary status. Governor Gianforte wants to privatize the things that make this state special. Rafe and I don't. When we say get your Montana back, think about if your property taxes went up or if your rent went up. When we say get your Montana back, we want working folks to be able to live and thrive in the towns and communities and places that they want to live. And right now, that's in jeopardy. We want to get it back. We're here to fight for you. Let's go do it.
All right. What's the website? One more time.
Busse4Montana.com. It's all spelled out. And you really should go watch the debate. It was a fun event here a couple days ago in Missoula, but there's the entire hour-long debate there. You can watch it and, choose for yourself after that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for being with us. We're going to shift gears to Missoula Econ 101 with Grant Keir with the Missoula Economic Partnership. And Bryce Ward is also going to be joining us for that. So it's going to be a great discussion as we jump into another hour coming up here in just a moment.
Paid for by...
This is Talkback 721-1290 or 1-800-568-5309.
This is Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 98.3 FM. KGVO, Missoula's news and weather station.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. It is hour number 2 of Talkback for this Tuesday, October 22nd. Time marches on here 2 weeks away from Election Day. Talkback this morning brought to you by 123 Seamless Gutters. Family owned and operated. They'll handle everything that has to do with gutters so you don't have to. Give them a call, 240-2669, protecting the foundation of your future. Y West Storage is out at the Y on Two Smokes Way. If you need a storage unit, they've got one for you, 406-510-0590, because at Y West they're making room for you. Phillips Janitorial, residential and commercial, your home and your business, they've got it all covered. No job too big or small for Phillips Janitorial, 406-260-6617, and by Harrington Surgical Supply, where you can feel confident in their discreet and knowledgeable guidance on a multitude of products and medical supplies.
The views and opinions expressed on Talkback are not those of the staff, management, or advertisers.
Okay, we are shifting gears, and it's kind of like being in class. It's Missoula Econ 101, and there we go. We are we are thrilled to have with us here in the studio Grant Keir, CEO of the Missoula Economic Partnership, and a special guest, Bryce Ward, is back in the studio with us. It's been a while, but it's so good to have both of you gentlemen here. So tell us what's going on, Grant.
Yeah, good morning, Peter. It's great to be back after I guess it was a recess from class here for the last couple of months.
Yeah.
But thrilled to be back and delighted today to bring in Bryce Ward. One of the things we try really hard to do at the Missoula Economic Partnership is help our business and the community be informed about big issues that we see either upcoming or just having come through the legislature. And as autumn presents itself to us here in western Montana today with cool temps and beautiful colors on the landscape, it's also time to start thinking about big issues in the coming legislative session. One of the big questions before our legislature will be whether or not to continue some of the Medicaid services that we've created in Montana. Some of those will sunset in this session if not renewed. So what we've brought Bryce in to do today is talk a little bit about what that program is and what are the economic impacts of Medicaid services that we have in Montana today, and what does it mean if we were to not renew those when the sunset comes forward.
So, Bryce, if you don't mind, before we start, a lot of folks maybe may not be familiar with you and your work. Could you just give us a little capsule history of Bryce Ward? I know you worked with Patrick Barkey for quite a while. You've been in the studio before, but you're on your own now, and you've got all sorts of things going on.
Yeah, so I used to work at BBR. I'm an economist, regional economist, and so if before I moved to Montana, I did private consulting. Then I worked at BBR for a while, and then I went back to private consulting. I work for myself here in Missoula. I do all sorts of answering of economic questions, largely for attorneys, but also for people interested in policies like Medicaid. Mm-hmm. And Grant calls me up all the time to say, hey, what's going on in Missoula with labor markets or housing markets or whatever it is. So
you're a great resource. We appreciate
hopefully, it. I try to be, whether I guess other people could decide if I'm good or not, but I try to be helpful.
Okay. So now let's jump into Medicare and Medicaid and what's coming up in the legislature.
Sure. So in 2016, Montana expanded Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act, right? So that meant was if you went in 2015, if you were between the ages of 19 and 64 and you were an adult, the only way to get on Medicaid was to be a parent with an income below roughly 50% of the federal poverty line. to have some sort of qualifying disability, or, there's pregnancy and some other smaller categories, right? So with expansion, if you're an adult between the ages of 19 and 64, now you can get onto Medicaid if you have incomes all the way up to 138% of the federal poverty line. You don't have to be disabled. You don't have to be a parent. You don't have to be pregnant. And so, that's what expansion is. That's what sunsets. At the end of 2025? Is that the actual end of it, or is it June of 25? I can't remember, but sometime next year if the legislator doesn't choose to extend it. So
okay, so let's say the legislature does nothing and it sunsets. How will that affect a vast number of people here in Montana? Especially, it might come as a big surprise to them. So go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So on average, roughly 90,000 Montanans are enrolled in the expanded Medicaid program. We think about half of them would be uninsured if they don't have expansion. About 20% of them will find their way back into traditional Medicaid. And the remaining 30%, most of them will go into the exchanges, because if you have income between 100 and 138%, you qualify for subsidies on the exchange. Few will land in employer insurance, but not very many, right? So what do we get so those 90,000 people will consume roughly $900 million worth of healthcare. The federal government's going to pay $800 million of that. Montana will pay $90 million of it. However, because of that transfer of people from traditional Medicaid, Montana pays more when people are on traditional Medicaid. Montana pays 35 cents on the dollar for them, whereas only 10 cents on the dollar for expansion. So basically, Montana net fiscal costs just within Medicaid transfers, we're paying maybe $50 million to get $800 million in federal money, right? So if you're on Medicaid expansion, obviously, if you lose your health insurance coverage and you end up in uninsured, you're going to consume a lot less health care. If you end up in the exchanges, you might consume less health care because your cost sharing may go up. If you're just transitioning in Medicaid, not much happens to you. If you're a healthcare provider, obviously you lose all of the revenue that comes from the increase in care that comes from people on Medicaid. But you also end up having to absorb a lot more uncompensated care, because some people, even if they don't have insurance, will show up and get care. They ultimately don't pay for it. That becomes uncompensated care. And so, that's basically what the trade-offs come down to. We have $700 million of new federal money, some amount of state money, 90,000 people with insurance, and, all the benefits that they get. We'll probably have to go into some of the details of a lot of this more. But in a big picture, if we give back Medicaid expansion, we lose those benefits. And this is the important thing from the state's perspective. We don't get anything in return. The federal government doesn't go, we were going to spend $900 million on Medicaid in your state. Well, here's a tax break, or here's a grant. We just give the money back to Washington, D.C., and we just, leave it there.
So it's up to the legislature to continue this.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to come right back. By the way, the phone lines are open if you have a question or comment for Grant Keir, Bryce Ward, and for those of us who are old, like me. Anyway, if you are concerned about this, and I'll bet you are, especially if you're just hearing about it, give us a call, 721-1290, 1-800-568-5309. You can also use the KGVO app. And if you haven't downloaded that, now would be a good time to get that done. It's just go on to the App Store, and you'll have it in seconds. We'll be right back after this.
Call 123 Seamless.
Dennis Bragg with your updated weather. It's back to sunshine Tuesday, but continued close to normal temperatures. Highs reaching the mid to upper 50s. Clear skies Tuesday evening will probably bring a hard freeze to the valleys Wednesday morning in western Montana, with lows dropping into the low to mid 20s and even the upper teens in some of the outlying areas. Fog may also be a problem for some Wednesday morning, followed by afternoon sun. Then increasing clouds in the evening with a 40% chance of rain. That cold front passes quick though, and it's back to sun Thursday and Friday.
Hey, welcome back to Talk Back, everybody. We are right in the middle of Missoula Econ 101. It's kind of a class. That's why we're thrilled to have Grant Keir here in the studio with us, CEO of the Missoula Economic Partnership. He brought with him Bryce Ward, who's founder of ABMJ Consulting, by the way, and also the Rural Institute for Inclusive Communities. So, yeah, he's a busy guy. But right now we're talking about Medicare and Medicaid expansion. Is it Medicaid expansion expansion?
Medicaid,
yeah. Medicaid expansion. All right. So we do have a caller. So let's jump right in.
And I believe we're having weird phone issues. So while you're on hold, press 1.
Oh, 1. Okay, very good. All right. Good morning. Is this Tim? Tim, good morning. You're on with Bryce and Grant. Go ahead, please.
Great. Thanks for having me. Question for Bryce on the statistics and that, which are very enlightening. What would be the other side of the equation? Why would this be something that we would decide in the legislature not to pass? Because it seems pretty obvious that we'd be giving up a large chunk of federal monies in doing that. I would wonder why this wouldn't be something that we would want to expand, if he has any idea on that. And then how does he think Annie is going to do her basketball team this year, on a side note? Appreciate it. Thanks,
Well, Tim, it's going to depend on how Giada does, but we'll see. Hopefully, Annie does good. Anyhow, fellow basketball parent on the line. So what does the state get? This is the question, right? And at the most simple, most basic level is, the state has to pay 10% of the cost of expansion, but it doesn't in fact pay 10% of the cost of expansion because it saves a bunch of money in other ways, and it gets revenue from other sources that come from the increased economic activity that comes from expansion. So it's not clear that it costs the state anything. My preferred estimates are that it's actually a fiscal benefit to the state. If I want to be really conservative, maybe it costs 3% of the cost of expansion. So that's the benefit, right? We're giving up all the federal money, the benefits of health coverage and all the things that benefits the providers, all of that stuff, and all the things that then ripple through the state as a result of that in terms of jobs, opportunities.
The trickle down.
The trickle down stuff. Right. Enhanced provider capacity, right? So if you're in a rural area and Medicaid makes the hospital or the tribal health center more flush, they'll expand services. And those services benefit everybody, not just the Medicaid beneficiary. So that's what's on what we give up. What do we get? We get maybe a little bit of money in the state budget, although probably not. Some people argue that there's labor force participation effects, that people on Medicaid expansion don't work. There's really not evidence to support that in any real way. There's a few studies in literature that find different effects. If you just look broadly in Montana, if you look at low income labor force participation, it's gone up since expansion, and it's gone up by more than what happened in non-expansion states. So we don't really see strong evidence of labor force effects.
All right. So we have another caller on the line. We're going to pull our callers first. So this is Steve. Steve, good morning. You're on with Bryce Ward and Grant Kier. Go ahead. What's your question, please? Hello, Steve. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, Steve. Please go ahead. We're sorry for the phone problems. But you are on with Bryce Ward and Grant Kier. What's your question, please?
Well, thank you for having me, Peter. Good luck with the phone systems. A quick question for Grant. Can you outline your funding sources for the economic? Sorry, I can't.
He wants to know what your funding sources are for the Missoula Economic Partnership.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks for the call.
I'd like to know just as a total and a percentage for each source would be helpful.
A total,
where it comes from.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
That sounds like more than an outline. I'm not sure I'm prepared to do a detailed assessment, but our budget's roughly $700,000 a year. I would say about 25% of that comes from public sources, so city, county, contracts with a redevelopment association agency. About 2/3 then comes from private sources, and that is a mix of businesses throughout the community. So everything down to individual sole proprietors who are giving us $1,000 a year, up to businesses who are giving us $25,000 a year. So it's a range, and it reflects kind of every industry and every scale of business in the community.
Well, I'll tell you, considering I've been working on and off with you for several years now, and it never ceases to amaze me the things you do in the background that don't make headlines, but we see more airlines in Missoula right now. We see more new businesses, more economic opportunities, people getting more jobs, better pay, and so I realize it hurts to pat yourself on the back, but you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. Patting myself on the back is not my forte, but I will pat our team on the back and our board on the back because we have an incredible group of staff and really dedicated board members and investors. And just to go back to Steve's question, if you go to our website, MissoulaPartnership.com, you can find directions to review 990s. You can also find a list of our investors on our annual reports. Every year we publish our annual report. The last page of that, we're proud to reflect all of the people who are invested in our success and the community's success economically.
Good job. And for that, we're up against a break. We're going to come right back. And Harry is waiting very patiently on the phone. Harry, thank you so much. And we have several other phone lines open. This is Missoula Econ 101. We're learning a lot here about Medicaid expansion and the fact that it's going to be sunsetting. And so it's up to the Montana legislature to either let it sunset, let it go bye-bye, or to renew it. So, yeah. I'm trying to figure out why we would want that to happen. But anyway, we're going to come right back after this quick timeout.
Montana State News Network.
I'm Dennis Bragg. For the first time in 7 years, Bozeman and Gallatin County leaders will meet in a joint session, and there will be a lot of ground to catch up on given the rapid growth in the valley since 2017. Items on the agenda for the joint meeting today with the county commissioners and Bozeman City Commission include updates on transportation, the Waste Transfer Station project, and the Hidden Creek Affordable Housing Project. County Commissioner Scott McFarland has said citizens deserve to know that the local governments are collaborating in their interest, and Bozeman Mayor Terry Cunningham says the community is stronger and more innovative when it works together. Montana Highway Patrol is now reporting it was a 31-year-old Big Sky man who was killed Sunday evening when his pickup was hit by an oncoming semi in Gallatin Canyon. Troopers say the victim lost control of his Nissan pickup, hitting the guardrail and coming to a stop in the southbound lane where it was hit by the semi, driven by a truck driver from Ogden, who also had some injuries that required medical treatment at the Big Sky Medical Center. MHP says alcohol and speed were factors in the crash. Managers of water systems across Montana are going to be busy this winter, analyzing how a new rule and new money might help them replace old pipes that still have problems from lead contamination. Jason Laird has the story.
Earlier this month, the Biden-Harris administration finalized a rule requiring U.S. drinking water systems to identify and replace lead pipes within 10 years. The lead and copper rule improvements also mandate stricter water testing and quicker actions when lead is detected. This move aims to protect communities from lead exposure and improve communication about the risks of lead pipe and replacement. Depending on city codes in your area, the cost of replacement may fall on property owners. Reporting for the Montana State News Network, I'm Jason Laird.
And in sports, things getting interesting heading into the Catgirls game in Bozeman next month. MSU is now 8-0 for the first time since 1956, ranked number 2 in the FCS Top 25 poll, and the Grizzlies are back in the top 10 at number 9. This is the Montana State News Network.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone.
That should do it.
Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
If I could be you.
And you could be me for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way
to get inside each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out. And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Okay, welcome back to Talk Back. It's Missoula Econ 101, rocking right along here this morning. CEO Grant Keir of the Missoula Economic Partnership and Bryce Ward is joining us, economist, and he's here to share about Medicaid expansion. And I believe we have, let's see, this is Harry. Harry, good morning. You're on Talk Back. What's on your mind, sir?
Yeah, good morning, gentlemen. I don't know if you've talked about this, but it seems like if they get rid of the Medicare, that it would actually cost the people more money. May not cost the state, well, you said like 3% or whatever more, but the fact that if people don't have it, then they don't go to the hospitals when they first initially get sick or have a injury or whatever. But eventually they will go because injuries and sicknesses don't go away, and the hospital will have to eventually pick it up if person can't pay for it, which eventually comes down to the people paying it, whether it's through bills from the hospital or whatever. But it will cost more actually in the long run. I don't know if that is true or not, but it seems to me that's the way it would work.
Yep,
Okay,
that's
Harry?
absolutely true.
Thanks for the call, Harry.
So essentially what happens is if you, particularly for the people who move into leave Medicaid and go back to being uninsured, you're going to skip a lot of care. Whatever care you get, you're going to either pay for out of pocket or just end up in debt and, not deal with the debt collectors and your lower credit rating and all that kind of stuff. What we have documented that when people get Medicaid expansion, they have less medical debt. They're less likely to go bankrupt. Their credit scores go up, which means that their interest rates go down. They spend less out of pocket on healthcare. So that means that all that money that they were spending out of pocket, they get to now go spend at the restaurant or the grocery store or some other business in the community. You get all sorts of individual family benefits from having Medicaid.
As the layest of laypersons here standing in front of you, it seems like it would take the legislature about a second and a half to say, let's keep going with that, okay? Because the last thing we want is to have people going bankrupt because of medical expenses, especially if it's not going to cost us any more than it is now. Why not just continue it? I can't imagine any legislator wanting to ever be reelected, especially with senior citizens, to say, let it go. I can't imagine that happening.
I guess, I appreciate both of your pragmatic approach to the world. But I want to remind us we live in a world that is both filled with pragmatists and philosophical positions.
Yes.
And I don't think we should underestimate the fact that there are a lot of people who have a philosophical opposition to government intervention into our economic systems.
Okay.
And so I think we should not underestimate the potential for people to just be opposed to this philosophically, and maybe they can be won over with the information that we have that is a compelling economic case. But I don't think it's fair to suggest that this is not a hard sell for some people. And I want to put that point out there. I also want to come back to Harry's point, because I feel like this is the one that makes the most sense to me. And maybe I want to go back to Steve first, which is to say, it seemed like a strange question in the context of this topic, but I will, just for Steve's sake, and in case anyone's wondering, one of our funders is Providence St. Patrick Hospital. And so if there's any question that we have some secret agenda to promote this because of them, they have been our funder since we were founded in 2010. They're a great partner and committed community member. That is not why we're talking about this topic today. We're talking about it primarily because we know the number one issue facing small businesses in Montana right now is workforce. And we know that the biggest challenge to attracting workforce is cost of living and affordability compared to wages. And what I can tell you right now is we are seeing small businesses shut down in our community because they are not able to attract the workforce they need to stay open, the number of hours to function. And one of the things that really compels workforce to think about where they should take their labor is the cost of living compared to wages. And so if we have high housing costs and we throw at our workforce unpredictable or high insurance costs or healthcare costs on top of that, I worry that we risk losing our workforce to other states that are outcompeting us by renewing this and committing this to their workforce and lower wage employees, so that we'll have an even harder time for our small businesses to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth noting that the vast majority of people who receive Medicaid, adults on Medicaid, are working. They work in low-wage occupations, right? It's not hard to imagine, the set of occupations where effectively the worker is getting higher compensation via Medicaid. It's bakers and waiters and cooks and customer service representatives and cashiers and all of the things, maids and housekeepers and groundskeepers and all of those things.
And a drywall mutter. I mean, all of those people who we absolutely need to make our economy function are the people who, they may be lower wage, but they do not lack significance and importance in our community and our economy. And this is a really important way to make sure that they feel secure keeping those jobs and doing the work we need them to do in our communities.
I will say, we're going to take a quick commercial break here, and Larry is waiting on the phone to talk talk with you gentlemen. But just as a quick aside, I was hungry for a milkshake the other day. So I stopped by my favorite milkshake place and drove through the drive-thru. And at the original drive-thru thing where you look at the menu, there's a big sign that says, we're very limited, please. We might take us longer to get your order, so please be patient. Got to the next one. Please, we have limited staff. So every single sign, there was a sign that says, please be patient with us. So, it doesn't matter whether you're getting a milkshake or building a house. The whole workforce issue is really huge, as you just mentioned.
That's right.
So we're going to come right back. 721-12. I want a milkshake now. So we're going to get Larry's call on when we come back with Missoula Econ 101 right after this. Okay, welcome back to Talk Back. It's Missoula Econ 101. Grant Keir here in the studio with us, along with Bryce Ward. I know you gentlemen wanted to make something, a quick point before we get to our next callers. So please go ahead.
Sure. So Grant pointed out that, a lot of the opposition to Medicaid expansion is on philosophical grounds. And, my response to that is that's completely fine. Right. But that's a federal philosophical discussion. Right. So once the federal government makes the program available, now we're into simple nuts and bolts. And Medicaid expansion is essentially an economic development program. Right. Do I take money, bring money into the state, have it circulate around, support jobs and incomes, and also get all those health benefits that we talked about with the last caller. But there's a philosophical point at the state level, but really that's a discussion for our federal representatives and not necessarily our state representatives.
All right. Let's, I believe Larry is on line one. Okay. Larry, good morning. You're on with Grant and Bryce. Please go ahead, please.
Good morning. I was listening to Alexa have an emotional breakdown on the other station, so I try to get my mind back in shape here.
That's okay. Go ahead.
I don't know whether this question has been asked or not, but did the legislature put a sunset on the medical expansion, or is that something that the federal government did and then they will pull the rug out from under us and we'll have to come up with the money ourselves?
That was the state legislative choice. When they re-upped it in 2019, they sunset it in 2025. I don't think they touched it. Or it was 2021 that maybe they did. I can't remember. At some point when they re-upped it, it wasn't in 2023. It was all the way to 2075. The federal government, there's no law on the books to change anything about Medicaid at the moment. They, of course, have the agency to change it at any point. And then states have the agency to respond to whatever changes they might make.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for the call, Larry. All right. Let's see. This is Emmett. Emmett, good morning. You are on with our guests, Bryce Ward and Grant Keir. Go ahead.
Emmett, good morning. You are on with our guests.
Emmett, just go ahead. Just talk, buddy. What's on your mind?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I was listening to the radio, so I had to turn the radio down because of the phone issues. Well, I just want to say I really, really thank you you guys for standing up for Medicaid expansion, Bryce and everyone. I would hate to see Medicaid sunsetted. It's an important program. Folks, Medicaid is not socialized medicine, nor is Medicare. And I would be against complete, control of the government over, health, whatever. I would be against complete universal health care because that's what they have in England, and it's a disaster. But Medicaid for lower income people assures us that if you need a doctor, if you're sick, you can get seen by a doctor without going bankrupt. A lot of people, poor people, if they didn't have health insurance, well, they wouldn't be able to see anybody. And when you get sick, you get sick. You can't will sickness away, or you may have other issues that you really need. I myself have take medication for gastric reflux disease. I'm amlodipine for high blood pressure, that kind of thing. And these are necessities; they're not luxuries. I can't do without my high blood pressure pills. So same with a lot of other senior citizens. And I just don't know why anyone would want to take Medicaid expansion away, or the expanded Medicaid away, for the cited reasons that we've been talking about in this program. And I do believe that health care is an absolute right, like clean water and clean food and good food. It's a right, not a privilege. So how do we get in touch with our legislatures, I guess, to make sure that Medicaid is not sunsetted, that the expansion is not sunsetted? Do we call the legislature? What do we do?
All right. Thanks for the call. All right.
Thank you.
So what I would say, if you're going to contact your legislators, find out what district you live in. And then find out who your legislators are. Contact them either by phone or by email or by a letter and say, hey, express your opinion. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think all of us know the ways to contact our legislators. They have the web. The information abundance created by the internet makes that a whole lot easier than perhaps it might have used to been, where I had to go find a book. I remember, when I was in 8th grade, we had to find the whole point of the 8th grade was there's this book that the state government put out with like the list of, and we basically had to go through it, and they gave us little assignments. But yeah, one of the pages in the Oregon Blue Book was the contact information for every state representative.
Well, when I was in 5th grade, Ollie White was my teacher, and this is like 4,000 years ago, and she had the We Never Ask, We Look It Up Club. So there you go. I'll never forget that. Go ahead.
Oh, Emmett, I just wanted to say thanks for, I think you very nicely highlighted one of my, I work closely with Bryce. It was great. Bryce's introduction was a great sort of chance for all of you to insights into what my phone calls sound like when I call Bryce for advice and input about an issue. But one of the terms Bryce has used is a consumer of healthcare, and I think what that does is really dismiss how different healthcare is from other products and services that we buy and sell. And I think Emmett, you did a great job of really making the case for how different that is, that this is not something that you can just choose not to buy and move on with personal. Your life. It's extremely personal, and it makes the outcome difference of being able to get that care is huge for your ongoing health and your ability to participate in the community.
And it's also different in that, the benefits accrue to the patient, but there's also spillover benefits, right? So when people have access to Medicaid, that means that they have access to things like substance abuse and mental health treatment, which appear to drive a reduction in crime. So Medicaid expansions are associated with crime reductions. Providers are in healthier shape, so they expand and they provide additional services, which those benefit everybody, right? When there's more services in your community, if you go from being below the line to having that service to above the line having that service, and you're in that community, you no longer have to drive from Polson to Missoula because there's something closer. Well, now you benefit, right? Because that service is now available, or you benefit because you actually use it, because you won't even drive to Missoula for it because it's too far. It's also different in that there are spillover benefits associated with having access to it.
All right, let's get another call in. I believe this is Steve. Okay. Steve, good morning. Is this Steve?
It is. How are you?
Steve, good morning. What's on your mind with our guests, Bryce and Grant? Go ahead.
I'm just listening to them. I'm here in Missoula, and I spent a better part of my career in the investment consulting business and dealt with a lot of hospitals, including St. Pat's. I also dealt with the Blue Cross system, so I know something about this topic on both sides. And I just wanted to clarify, Medicaid and Medicaid expansion are two different things. Medicaid was established in the 60s, and at the time was kind of called widows and orphans insurance. So Medicare is what you receive when you get to be 65. Medicaid was another program for health care that was established to help the most in need members of our community. And it's a very generous program compared to private insurance, et cetera. When the Obamacare expanded Medicaid, which is what you're talking about now, the expansion of it, not the elimination of it, but the expansion of it, in states like Massachusetts, where we had healthcare clients, close to 50% of the state's population is on Medicaid, right? So that's no deductibles, that's not-negotiating, and the government pays for your entire health care. Now, Massachusetts is the fourth largest income, the highest income in the country with Harvard and MIT, et cetera, up there. And 50% of the state is on Medicaid, and the federal government has turned most of that payment over to the state, and it's now more than 50% of the state's budget. So clearly there are a lot of people in Massachusetts that don't qualify as widow and orphans, but have, manipulated the government to get their health care paid for through expansion. And so, St. Pat's is, of course, in favor of it because St. Pat's is a tax-exempt organization that borrows in the debt-free market and doesn't pay taxes. They've got a $25 billion cash position on their portfolio, and the reason they have the tax-exempt status is they promised the federal government that they will provide care to everyone, what they refer to as indigent care. And if everybody goes on Medicaid, then St. Pat's doesn't have to provide indigent care or free health care to anybody who walks in the door. So, of course, they're in favor of it. And I just wanted to balance the conversation because I hear people calling in and saying, you can't take away my meds. You can't take away Medicaid. I don't believe that's what's being discussed. It's, as Montana is a conservative red state, we have tended not to pursue Obamacare. And the states on both coasts that have are in unbelievable budget problems because a very large percentage of their population has turned the cost and responsibility of Medicare entirely over to the federal and more likely state government. So that's my thought.
All right. Then with that, we're up against the break, and we'll have them comment on that when we come back. Thanks for the call, Steve, and thanks for sharing your experience. We're going to come right back. We also have Denise waiting on the line, and we will continue with Missoula Econ 101 right after this.
Hey, this is Josh.
We are back on Talkback. 721-1290 is our number, 1-800-568-5309. It's Missoula Econ 101. In case you've never had a chance to be part of our class, Grant Keir is the CEO of Missoula Economic Partnership. He is heading things up, and Bryce Ward is our special guest. We're talking about Medicaid expansion here in Montana that will be up before the legislature. So any comments before we get to our next guest?
Sure. No, I want to respond to Steve from before the break.
Yes, please do.
Okay, so first, Medicaid expansion is Medicaid. It's true that eligibility requirements for Medicaid have changed over time. They were varied by state beforehand. There's been an evolution over time, but people on Medicaid expansion, they get Medicaid, the insurance provider. So there's maybe a slight difference there. But, I wanted to throw out some facts about Massachusetts, or some claims about Massachusetts. Now, Massachusetts in 2006 under Governor Romney, was essentially the precursor to the Affordable Care Act. A lot of what you saw in the Affordable Care Act was just what they'd done in Massachusetts. It is not true that 50% of Massachusetts is on Medicaid. In fact, Medicaid in Massachusetts looks almost identical to Montana in terms of the share of people that are covered by Medicaid post-expansion. Pre-expansion, there were some differences because Massachusetts had already essentially expanded Medicaid before. But currently it's about 25% in both states receive Medicaid. You get to 50% if you're focused only on low income people. But that's where a 50% number would come if you focus on people who are at the threshold or roughly around the threshold of 138%. But I don't know where this notion that 50% of people are on Medicaid comes from. I guess that's all I'll respond. People can look up other facts if they want to. There's lots of information about Medicaid enrollment available. It's pretty easy to download it.
All right, Grant, did you want to? Okay, let's jump right back in here and say good morning to. Okay.
1 second. So press 3 and you have Alex.
Okay. Alex, good morning, sir. You're on Talkback on Missoula Econ 101. What's on your mind, please?
I just had a comment about something one of the other callers said. I'm actually in favor of the Medicaid expansion because of the system that our governments have set up. That's the only access to health care that a lot of our state residents have. So I'd be in favor of expanding that. But one of your previous callers mentioned that health care is a right of all Americans. Health care is not a right. Health care is something that has to be provided for you by somebody else. The rights, as outlined in our Constitution, are things that you do for yourself, like speak freely or assemble or petition your government. They're not things that somebody else has to do for you, except for extreme conditions, like you're accused of a crime and a lawyer has to be appointed for you because you can't afford one. So healthcare is not a right. It is a privilege that we have. And I would like to give a shout out to all the providers that participate in the Medicare and Medicaid programs, because a lot of times they're seeing patients and caring for them at less than the programs pay for an hour. So they're doing that at a loss. So I would like to give that shout out. And anyway, that was my my comment. Thank you,
Alex. Thanks for your call, gentlemen. Any response to that?
No, I mean, where you fall on what things are rights or not, that's the kind of thing that political discourse, I think, is designed for. Personally, it doesn't doesn't affect me one way or the other, whether, it's a right or an obligation or a privilege. I'm just here to talk about the nuts and bolts of what happens.
You're an economist. Yeah. All right.
Not a philosopher.
I was going to say, I think this gets back to my point earlier. There are philosophical positions people want to take. To Emmett's credit, he prefaced claiming that it is a right with the statement of, I believe. I believe, he specifically said, I believe it's a right. And, each one of us is entitled to our beliefs.
All right. Well, let's get Jeff on the line. Jeff, good morning, sir. You are on with our guests. Go ahead, please.
Hey, good morning. Couple of things real quick. Number one is the fact that I took a look at the numbers, the actual numbers for the state. And state spent last year, I believe, $2.4 billion to support about 228,000 people. And that's about a fifth of the state population. As Steve was talking about, it's a significant portion. And that works out to about $10,000 a person that the federal and state governments pay for each individual on the program. Now, that's real money. That's money that comes out of people's pockets. And it doesn't matter if it's coming back through the state or the federal level. It's money that came out of actual citizens' pockets to fund this. Either that or it's going on the debt. And to say that we need to reduce the number of people is not to say that the program needs to get eliminated, but as Steve said, it was supposed to be a welfare net. And there are very real reasons why certain corporations in the medical profession are looking to get discontinued because it takes a lot of the burden off them and allows them to grow their coffers. So there's a self-serving interest, even with Providence, the medical organization. And second of all, Bryce, I did a little research, and I don't know if it got up was mentioned at the beginning of the show because of all the issues and stuff with phones and things. But did you tell the listening audience that you're basically a Harvard-educated university professor at the University of Montana, advocating for all this, and that ABMJ Consulting really, as I looked at your client list, it looked to be mostly people who are on the left side, and you're supporting litigation and different programs that actually support progressive issues, intersectionality, and different things like that. So it's not. I think this is a bit of a canard in that it's the progressive side coming in trying to say that, hey, we need to take care of people, which tugs at everybody's heartstrings, but without looking at the financial side of it and not being completely honest with people about the agenda. So thanks.
All right. Thanks for the call, Jeff. In 1 minute, he'll respond to that. We're up against a break, and that's just how the timing goes. But he'll talk about that when we come back. And we just have a few minutes left with our guests for Missoula Econ 101. We'll be right back after this 1 minute timeout. On Talk Back, and this is our final segment here on Missoula Econ 101. Okay, so Jeff had some things to say, so go ahead, Bryce.
$2.4 billion for the total cost of the Medicaid program is about right. 10,000 per beneficiary is about right, although it's important to note that that's disproportionate. The disabled population is much higher. So if you look at the Medicaid expansion program or adult Medicaid, it's more like 8,000. It's paid for by people, right? The issue for Montana is not whether or not, that again, this is the distinction between the federal issue and the state issue, right? Because for Medicaid expansion, the roughly $1 billion that is Medicaid expansion, 90% of that is paid for by the federal government. If we don't take it, we give that money back. We don't get anything in return.
Somebody else will take it, trust me, right?
Exactly, right? And so, Montanans pay for Medicaid expansion nationwide, right? The question is whether we want the benefits of Medicaid expansion for ourselves.
You bet. Gentlemen, we have we have another caller? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Sandy said, I didn't get a chance to ask at the economic seminar, but I've heard from medical professionals that adult Medicaid is one of the easiest to qualify for in the nation. That can lead to taking advantage of the program from both professionals and patients. Do you think that's accurate?
it's not particularly easy to qualify. The eligibility criteria are specified. How you demonstrate that, prove that, as we're seeing through redetermination, it's really hard. A lot of people have lost Medicaid coverage. In fact, there's a survey that the Census Bureau does that asks people who lost Medicaid why they lost it. And Montana has one of the highest shares in the country of people saying they lost it because of paperwork. It's 6 percentage points higher than the median state. That's a lot of people. I don't think it's easy to qualify, and I don't think it's easy for providers to work with. In fact, most of the providers I talk to generally hate all insurance providers. They hate all the administrative burden that comes with it. So I don't know if it's, I don't know if I would qualify it as particularly easy for anybody. But that's just the administration of healthcare is something of a nightmare.
Well, the administration of healthcare is something I know a little bit about because I'm kind of married into it. But I will tell you that very few things that I do in my life require more paperwork than just going to see the doctor, right? Well, whether it's just my wellness checkup, whether it's I have a kidney stone operation or whatever, and the sheer volume of paperwork that follows those procedures, whatever they might be, is staggering. And every single one of them, they tell me is necessary because this guy has to get paid, that person has to get paid, this surgery center has to get paid, all those things. So it is necessarily really complicated. Is that a good way to put it?
I mean, I don't know if it's necessary. I would love to see, a focus from all levels of government on how do we get rid of what I call effort taxes, right? Just as we spend a lot of time worrying about what our financial tax burden is, we should spend a lot more time thinking about what the effort tax associated with all of our choices is. Because you spending time on hospital paperwork is you not doing something else, right? All of us have limited effort capacity, limited time, energy, motivation, whatever you want to call it, right? Psychologists have different terms for it. But, it's draining to deal with systems. And some people are good at it and people like me are terrible at it. And so, it's worth asking yourself whenever you're dealing with all this paperwork, is this actually necessary? Mm-hmm. Is there a better system? Sometimes it is. But a lot of times some of our paperwork is somebody's system didn't want to do the work, so they pushed it onto you. And so we should be asking ourselves, who are we pushing work onto? What's the overall effort tax burden? And is it distributed the way that we want it in society? So with the legislative session coming up, what we're talking about here is our legislature has the opportunity to continue the Medicaid expansion. From this conversation today, I hope we've got a clearer thought as to exactly what that's going to mean. And we appreciate both of you being here. Any final words, Grant?
Yeah, no, I guess I would come back to, that's what we feel like our role is in the community, is to provide information. I have a lot of faith in Bryce's numbers. What I didn't hear anyone dispute are the numbers that he presented. And I hope that folks I think there are important philosophical debates and discussions to have about every policy issue. I tried to be pretty representative of the range of philosophical positions that might exist on this. I think Bryce has made a strong case that the philosophical debate should happen at the federal level. In my opinion, as the Missoula Economic Partnership, what I want us to do is be competitive. I want us to be competitive with other states and other communities, and I feel like this makes us competitive with those other places so that our employers can be successful and provide jobs to our community.
So, Bryce, where can people go, because you have your finger on the pulse of this whole subject matter, if they want to read up on it and perhaps develop a stronger opinion?
So I've written reports every legislative session going back to 2019. So if you literally just Google the economic effects of Medicaid expansion in Montana, you will find one of those reports.
Okay.
But there's ones from 2018, 19, 21, and 23. There will be a couple more coming soon. So if you want to read all the details, just Google it. You'll find it on the Montana Healthcare Foundation's website. That's where they live.
I want to say thank you to both of you for being with us. We appreciate it. And this is great information. And thank you. And by the way, thank you for your patience with our technical difficulties. You guys are awesome. We love our listeners. We thank you for sticking with us and hanging in there. We'll get this all taken care of. Don't worry. So that's going to do it for today's show. So, Nick, as we look forward to tomorrow's fabulous program, sir.
We're going to have Walt Kiro, our friend and resident CPA, answering your tax questions. Right now he's scheduled from 8 to 9, but We had a cancellation from 9 to 10, so he may take that second hour, or we may do open phones. We'll see what happens.
All right. So, again, thank you to all of our guests this morning. We really, really appreciate it. I appreciate Ryan Busse, Raph Graybill were both with us for the first hour, and for Grant Keir and Bryce Ward being with us again. Thank you for your expertise, and thank you for taking time out of your very busy days to be here. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Get out there and make it a great day, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 for